everywhere. GBS.
Good afternoon, this is the Ambassador. With me, your Ambassador, Jennifer Macau. And today we are going to start with the stories of the Africa-Korea Summit. As President William Ruto addressed the inaugural Korea-Africa Summit on Tuesday, emphasizing the crucial role Korea can play in Africa's transformation. He stated that Africa is eager to cultivate strong partnership with Korean investors and to harness its vast potential, turning it into opportunities and investments that will generate jobs and drive economic growth. Here is the report.
President William Ruto on Tuesday addressed the inaugural Korea-Africa Summit and underscored the critical role Korea can play in the transformation of Africa. The president said Africa is keen on exploring robust partnerships with Korean investors to turn Africa's enormous potential into opportunity and investment that will create jobs and foster economic growth.
Therefore, it is important that this summit will point the way to the future for initiatives like the K-Rise Korea program, of which Kenya is an active participant, to be extended across Africa. Such programs are not just about enhancing production, but are also about building capacity and transferring technology to promote sustainability and resilience, especially in the light of escalating threat of global climate change.
The president commended Korea's commitment to aligning its strategic policies with the African Union's Agenda 2063 and further noted that the Korea-Africa Forum and the Korea-Africa Economic Cooperation have facilitated progressive diplomatic and economic engagements that had helped accelerate the growth of trade and investment.
Korea's highly developed capacity in renewable energy and sustainable technology is a vital complement of Africa's ambition to unlock its abundant resource potential, both through the continent's incomparable green energy potential as well as the manufacturing and industrial processing of other plentiful resources by means of environmental sustainable practices.
The summit, whose theme is The Future We Make Together, Shared Growth, Sustainability and Solidarity, was hosted by President Yoon Suk Yeol at the Korea International Exhibition Center in Goyang.
As for the delegates,
President Ruto attended the summit in his capacity as the chairperson of the Committee of the African Heads of State and the Government on Climate Change and the African Union Champion for Institutional Reform.
The first ever Korea-Africa Summit, which commenced on Tuesday, June 3rd, brought together representatives from 48 African nations. The two-day event is set to focus on enhancing trade, technology and collaboration, and investment between South Korea and African countries. South Korean officials emphasize that strengthening ties in minerals and resources is crucial for improving the country's supply chain, resilience, particularly in key industries such as battery production. Here is more.
say expanding ties in the area of minerals and resources would help improve the country's supply chain, resilience in key industries such as batteries. He said that in order to boost cooperation with Africa, South Korea will expand the Official Development Assistance Program, ODA, to around $10 billion until 2030. In order to encourage South Korean trade and investment in the region, South Korea will improve $14 billion in exporting finance. In order to boost cooperation with Africa, South Korea will expand ODA to around $10 billion until 2030. Also, in order to encourage South Korean trade and investment in the region, Korea will provide $14 in exporting financing. Trade with African nations currently accounts for less than 2% of Koreans' total imports and exports. South Korea's outreach to the continent comes at the time when neighbor Korea seeks to break out of diplomatic isolation. Sylvia Makori, GBS News.
In a significant move aimed at boosting Kenya's digital landscape, the nation has secured a massive development funding deal with $485 million, that is 63 billion Kenya shillings, from South Korea. The agreement, inked on the sidelines of the Korea-Africa Summit, included a substantial allocation of $238 million, that is 30 billion Kenya shillings, for the Konza Digital Media City project. During the Korea-Africa Summit, President William Ruto expressed his eagerness for the project, highlighting its potential to revolutionize Kenya's digital sector, emphasizing more on the dare to live for the Kenya-African nations. Here is more.
Despite these gains, African nations continue to struggle against a rising multitude of complex, interrelated challenges, which not only diminish our capacity to develop in accordance with our potential, they also actively undermine our investment and achievements. They include an escalated debt crisis, low access to development resources in our international financial markets, high costs of this limited financing, heightened vulnerability to fluctuations in global economy, including inflation, supply chain disruptions, which make the prices of essential goods beyond reach of many. Geopolitical crises and negative impacts of climate change have also made significant contribution to this situation. These challenges underscore the urgent need for a more equitable and inclusive global development financial architecture, beginning with the advancement of contributions to the World Bank concessional lending window to enable African countries to effectively respond to economic shocks and pursue development agenda. We are asking at this point Korea, working with other countries, to double its contribution to IDA and working with the International Monetary Fund to consider channeling special drawing rights to the Africa Development Bank so that we can access concessional development financing for African countries. The vision of the Korea-Africa Summit is to bring the inspiring precedent of the miracle of the Han River to bear on Africa's potential to generate shared prosperity for present and future generations. I therefore look forward with great anticipation to engaging in discussions focusing on the following areas. The first critical issue with high development potential and requiring attention is food security. Africa's rich natural resources and growing and increasing youth skilled population present a significant opportunity for growth in agriculture, industry, and trade. I applaud Korea's willingness to collaborate with Africa in enhancing food production. This support is vital, and when expanded to include sharing of cutting-edge agricultural technology and expertise, will be.
President Ruto also lauded Korea for its support in establishing the Kenya Advanced Institute of Science and Technology, that is the Kenya IST, signaling deepening collaboration between the two nations in scientific and technological endeavors. He emphasized on the ongoing collaborative efforts between Kenya and Korea, ranging from transportation, infrastructure, projects to initiatives to healthcare and manufacturing. President Yoon Suk-yeol of Korea reciprocated the comments to bolstering ties, affirming Korea's readiness to support Kenya's ambitious transformation agenda. Here is more.
Important that this summit will point the way to the future for initiatives like the K-Rise Korea program, of which Kenya is an active participant, to be extended across Africa. Such programs are not just about enhancing production, but are also about building capacity and transferring technology to promote sustainability and resilience, especially in the light of escalating threat of global climate change. Secondly, I'm optimistic that a primary area of focus in our deliberations shall be science and technology. To be effective and sustainable, a repositioned partnership between Korea and Africa must be intentional in harnessing the potential of the fourth industrial revolution. Without a doubt, Korea's impressive advancement of ICT, and especially in the fields of robotics, biotechnology, artificial intelligence, and quantum computing, can enhance Africa's capacity to undertake successful economic transformation. I therefore call for a significant enhancement of technology transfer and knowledge exchange in order to empower our youth and spur inclusive economic development. Increased involvement of the private sector from both regions through investment will stimulate growth.
President Yoon Suk-yeol pledged Korea's assistance in various sectors, including technology, infrastructure, and water management programs, highlighting the mutual benefits such as collaborations that would bring both nations, with Kenya and Korea forging ahead with their partnership, setting the stage for a new chapter and progression in the innovation of both countries. Here is more.
Complement of Africa's ambition to unlock its abundant resource potential, both through the continent's incomparable green energy potential as well as the manufacturing and industrial processing of other plentiful resources by means of environmental sustainable practices. Together, Korea and Africa can address the challenges of climate change while pursuing economic development in a manner that respects and upholds our environmental obligations. Initiatives that promote green growth and sustainable practice within African countries are absolutely vital, and Korea's partnership cannot be overstated. Additionally, it is my hope that we shall also make progress in deliberating about peace and security, as stability is the foundation of prosperity. Africa's Agenda 2063 underscores a peaceful, secure continent as a prerequisite for economic development. As a champion for institutional reforms within the African Union, I believe that there exists a unique and historic opportunity for Korea to partner with us in this singularly important.
As we wind up on the Korea-Africa Summit, South Korea is intensifying its diplomatic and economic engagement with Africa, aiming to bolster its ties to development, aid, trade, and investment. This initiative highlighted during the inaugural Korea-Africa Summit, where President Yoon Suk-yeol hosted representatives from 48 African countries, including 25 heads of state. Africa's 54 states are an important bloc at the United Nations and hold 3 rotating seats on Security Council. In a speech, Yoon urged African countries to take firmer steps in an international pressure campaign against North Korea. The North recently accelerated its tests of nuclear-capable weapon systems and flew hundreds of balloons to drop tons of trash and manure on South Korea as relations between the war-divided Koreans worsen. President Yoon's strategy reflects a dual approach of fostering economic partnerships with Africa and with simultaneously seeking to isolate North Korea diplomatically by offering substantial development aid and investment. South Korea aims to build long-term mutual benefit relationships with the African nations, potentially gaining their support in the broader international issues. Here is more.
각국 정상과 대표들은
In order to respond to climate change, participating leaders and members have agreed to form a climate finance structure that reflects Africa's need to respond to the threat.
기후 금융 구조를 만들어 나가기로 했습니다. 또한
Also, South Korea has decided to expand projects such as K-Rice Belt that can help strengthen Africa's food self-sufficiency.
식량 자급자족 역량 강화 사업을 확대해 나아가기로 했습니다.
En conclusion, je suis convaincu que notre sommet
To conclude, I am convinced that our summit launched the basis of an innovative, win-win and durable partnership based on solidarity and trust in our collective intelligence.
à notre intelligence collective.
And that international news brings us to our first break. Next, we'll talk about the United States Department, which stated that it held Hamas responsible for a ceasefire delay in Gaza. while the IDF outlined four more hostages that were found dead in Gaza, vowing to continue their efforts. As Zelensky thanked the Philippines for their support to Ukraine, we will also get to see the AI, artificial intelligence, misinformation, deep fake states that came from the Geneva summit. We have this and more lined up for you shortly after the break. Stay tuned with us.
Mtu aliniinspire, let's say my husband, because yeye ndo alikuwa na hiyo biashara.
Yes. So maybe unaweza tuambia hizo challenges zile unapitia, then how do you overcome them?
Like sometimes hadi nakupeanga do, nilikuwa nimeshikilia kitu yako, ukirudisha do yangu na kupatia.
Kwa hivyo it's like a
Unajua, let me tell you, uzuri ya biashara, ukiwa umeka tuseme vitu mingi pamoja. Like ukikosa kuuza sockets, utauza viatu. Ukikosa kuuza viatu, furnitures zitaenda. Environment. Mtu au learn environment kwanza, unaona. Unajua inaweza kuwa place hakuuzwi mandazi. So nikiweka mandazi, kutakuwa na place ya kuuzwa mandazi. So they all come.
Yeah.
Mtu anaishi Githurai, unataka kwenda kumwekea Air Force za box. Atanunua saa ngapi?
Na mwenye ananunua anajua mahali zinatoka.
Everywhere. GBS.
Exhumation in Kenya Shakahola Forest have led to the discovery of 7 new bodies on Monday, bringing the total number of victims unearthed from the mass graves to 436, a grim discovery and a part of the ongoing investigation into a doomsday cult. Last year, the Kenya government halted exhumations to allow the DNA matching of the bodies, and to a date, only 34 of the victims have been positively identified. The first bodies were found in April 2023 in Shakahola Forest, near the Kenyan coast. This discovery led to the arrest of Pastor Paul Mackenzie, who was accused of leading his followers to starve themselves to death in a bid to meet Jesus. Mackenzie faces 191 counts of murder, manslaughter and terrorism, as well as charges of child torture and cruelty. He, however, pleaded not guilty. Here is more. In a ceremony held at the Prime Minister office in Port-au-Prince on Monday, June 3rd, Gary Conil was officially sworn in as the Haiti's new Prime Minister, succeeding interim Prime Minister Patrick Boisvert. The 58-year-old Conil, who shares executive power with the Presidential Council at the political functions to set aside their differences for the nation's best interest. Here is more.
In his first address as Prime Minister, Conil called on political functions to set aside their differences for the best interest of the nation. What will be of interest for the people of Haiti is that through this mandate, they will see the interests of different groups of individuals put aside for the best interest of the nation. The Transitional Council, responsible for appointing the Prime Minister, is also tasked with organizing presidential elections by early 2026. The country is still awaiting the arrival of the Kenya-led International Police Force. Before his recent appointment, Conil served as UNICEF's Regional Director for Latin America and the Caribbean since January 2023. With a background in medicine and public health, he has played a pivotal role in developing healthcare in Haiti's impoverished communities and coordinating reconstruction efforts after the 2010 earthquake. Thomas Musyoki, GBS News.
Moving on to South Africa, the African National Congress, ANC, announced on Monday, that was June 3rd, that it will hold a National Executive Committee this week to decide the formation of the new government. With ANC leader Cyril Ramaphosa seeking a second term, the party must now secure support for other parties, having lost its majority in the parliament. Here is more.
Who lived in this city.
The ANC confirmed on Monday that it will hold a National Executive Committee meeting this week. The purpose is to decide on the constitution of the new government. Party leader Cyril Ramaphosa needs support from other parties after the ANC's significant loss in parliament.
This election has made plain is that the people of South Africa expect their leaders to work together to meet their needs.
The ANC Secretary General Fikile Mbalula tweeted that the party is in talks both internally and with other parties. These discussions aim to establish national and provincial governments that reflect the will of the people and move the country forward. Analysts advocate for the coalition of these parties with the ANC's potential partners, including the Democratic Alliance, the Economic Freedom Fighters, and the newly founded MK Party. However, alliances with these parties come with significant challenges. The DA and ANC have irreconcilable differences on key issues. The MK Party, backed by former President Jacob Zuma, has a strained relationship with Ramaphosa.
Cyril's leadership, we understand the way in which the policies have been created, and I think also Cyril will probably be more likely to collaborate with other parties and allow for this inter-party mix.
On the other hand, the EFF, led by former ANC member Julius Malema, shares some common ground with the ANC. Any coalition including the EFF and MK could push the DA to withdraw from talks. The clock is ticking as the new parliament must convene and elect a president within 14 days of the election results being declared. Alex Mwangi, GBS News.
Moving on from South Africa to the Israel-Hamas conflict, the only thing standing in the way of immediate ceasefire, that is the U.S. Department spokesperson who blamed Hamas for the armistice delay in Gaza. In Washington, D.C., where the United States Department laid blame on Hamas for the delay in implementing the immediate ceasefire in Gaza. Matthew Miller, the spokesperson for the U.S. State Department, on Monday addressed reporters during a press briefing, pointing fingers at Hamas, stating that the group was the primary obstacle to achieving an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. According to Miller, a proposal similar to the one previously accepted by Hamas was currently on the table, awaiting action from the group. Miller stressed on the importance of both military efforts and a political path to resolving the conflict, warning that a military campaign alone could fuel recruitment for Hamas, underlining the need for a comprehensive approach. Here is more.
The Palestinian people should know that the only thing standing in the way of an immediate ceasefire today is Hamas. The proposal on the table is nearly identical to what Hamas said it would accept just a few weeks ago, and it is now time for them to act.
Are you confident that the Israelis have, in fact?
Since the president's remarks on Friday, Secretary Blinken has been engaging in intense diplomacy with foreign counterparts to urge the completion of an agreement for a ceasefire in Gaza that would secure the release of hostages and set the stage for lasting peace. Over that time, the Secretary has spoken to the foreign ministers of Turkey, Egypt, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and the United Arab Emirates, as well as Israeli Defense Minister Gallant and War Cabinet member Benny Gantz. In all of his calls, the Secretary has underscored the benefits of this proposal to both Israelis and Palestinians. But this was ultimately an Israeli proposal. In terms of where it stands, it was submitted to Hamas on Thursday night. We have yet to hear a response. We obviously saw the statement that they put out, I think it was on Friday, but we haven't gotten a response back from them. Just a military campaign in itself, while it will, without a doubt, continue to kill and capture members of Hamas, is also going to serve as a recruitment device for other potential Hamas members that will come and join and replenish the ranks. And so you have to have not just a military campaign, but a political path forward as well. The violence that we have seen in the West Bank is unacceptable. It must stop. Civilians are never legitimate targets of violence. They must be protected. We urge Israel to do everything in its power to prevent these attacks in the first place, and when they're not prevented, to hold those responsible accountable. We urge them to work with the Palestinian Authority to that end.
More on this conflict as the Israel Defense Forces, IDF, on Tuesday announced the discovery of 4 more hostages killed by the Hamas in Gaza. Daniel Hagari delivered the grim news to the families in Tel Aviv, revealing that the victims were found together in Khan Yunis during an IDF operation. Hagari also confirmed the death of Dolev Yehud, a paramedic missing since the October 7th attack, with his remains found, highlighting his heroic actions, stating he left behind a pregnant wife and 3 children in the shelter to save lives and was murdered by the Hamas. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has reiterated that IDF will not withdraw from Gaza until all objectives are met. This statement follows the U.S. President Joe Biden's call for the Hamas to accept a 3-part Israeli proposal, including a 6-week ceasefire and an IDF withdrawal from the populated areas. Here is more.
Today we shared the devastating news with the families of 85-year-old Amiram Cooper, one of the founders of Kibbutz Nir Oz, 80-year-old Chaim Perry from Kibbutz Nir Oz, 80-year-old Yoram Metzger from Kibbutz Nir Oz, and 51-year-old Israeli and British citizen Dolev Yehud from Kibbutz Nadav Popelwell from Kibbutz Nirim. That their loved ones were killed a few months ago during Hamas captivity in Gaza, and their bodies are still being held by Hamas. We assessed that the 4 of them were killed while together in the area of Khan Yunis during our operation there against Hamas. The information we confirmed by the relevant bodies after assessing new intelligence that we gathered over the last few weeks. We also informed the family of Dolev Yehud, a paramedic who left his home on October 7th to save lives. He left his home to save lives. He left behind him his woman, his wife, pregnant, and his 3 children in the shelter. He left them to save lives, and he was murdered by Hamas, and we revealed the remains of the body. Our hearts go out to their families. We are sorry we couldn't save them in time. Each of these hostages has a story. Take Chaim Perry, of blessed memory. Chaim was a peace activist. He believed, he fought for coexistence between Israelis and Palestinians. Chaim was a volunteer who used to transport sick children from Gaza to receive medical treatment in Israel. He was brutally kidnapped by Hamas on October 7th. Hamas is holding women, children, the sick and the elderly hostage in Gaza. We will keep on doing everything we need for their freedom, to bring them home. This is what any other decent country in the world will do.
Ukrainian President Zelensky expressed his gratitude to the Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. for the support on Kiev during his inaugural visit to Manila on Monday. Zelensky highlighted the Philippines' readiness to participate in the upcoming peace summit on Ukraine, describing it as a strong signal and a very strong step on a way to peace, which he highlighted was the real thing Ukrainians needed to sort. The Filipino administration has yet to officially announce its decision on participation on the Swiss-organized Global Peace Conference focused on the Ukraine war that is scheduled on June 15 to 16 on Switzerland. Here is more.
We are very honored that you found the time to pass by the Philippines. I know that the crisis in your country has occupied all of your attention and all of your time, and it is a great pleasure to meet with you to discuss some of the issues that are common to our 2 countries, and hopefully find ways forward for both of us together. And but once again, I wish that we're under better circumstances, but I am happy that you are able to come and visit with us, Mr. President.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. Your team, we are very happy to be first time in Philippines. I'm sure not last. Thank you for this invitation, and we are very thankful to be in your country and which supports Ukraine, our territorial integrity and sovereignty. Thank you so much for your big word and clear position about us. about this Russian occupation of our territories.
UN Human Rights Chief Volker Turk on Tuesday renewed calls for the end of the escalating violence in the occupied West Bank, which had seen a sharp increase since the 7th October attack. Turk emphasized on the urgent need for the accountability following the deaths of over 500 Palestinians at the hand of Israeli security forces, ISF, and the settlers. Speaking through the spokesperson Jeremy Lawrence, Turk highlighted the concerns over the ISF use of lethal force against Palestinian protesters who are often throwing stones, Campbell-style bottles, and the firecrackers at the armored vehicles. Since October 7, 2024, Israelis, including 8 of the members, have also been killed in the West Bank and Israeli clashes or alleged attacks by the Palestinians. Here is more.
Calls for an end to the sharp rise in deadly violence in the occupied West Bank since the 7th of October. He urges accountability for the killing of over 500 Palestinians by Israeli security forces and settlers. The Israeli security forces have often used lethal force as a first resort against Palestinian protesters, throwing stones, incendiary bottles, and firecrackers at armoured vehicles, in cases where those shot clearly did not represent an imminent threat to life. Among the 505 Palestinians killed so far are 2 boys shot at the weekend at a distance of about 70 metres while running away after throwing stones and/or Molotov cocktails towards a military post outside a settlement near Aqabat Jabbar. Since the 7th.
And that international news brings us to the end of our ambassador, GBS Global News. It's been a pleasure having you on board, joining us to the end. We'll keep you more updated here at the ambassador, where we'll give you the latest global developments as you keep it locked with us. Have been your ambassador, Jennifer Macau, and I'm looking forward to seeing you at the ambassador tomorrow, same time, same place, from Monday to Friday at 1 p.m. And may you all have a superb and the most beautiful and a wonderful afternoon. Stay safe.